Welcome, everybody. I am Fred Wellman. I'm an Iraq combat veteran, 3 tours in Iraq and Desert Storm. I flew Black Hawk, SWAT, and some other cool stuff. For the purposes of today, I'm with VoteVets, and I am a former spokesman for the United States Army, my last job. I actually served right in the Pentagon for my last tour of the United States Army in 2010 before I retired. So we're going to talk about Arlington National Cemetery and the absolute disaster that the Trump campaign stunt has become and was that day. And so I got incredible crew here to join us. But before we have everybody join, by the way, welcome. Before we get going, feel free to leave comments on YouTube, on Facebook, and Twitter, wherever you are. We'll see them. We'll highlight some of your posts. If you want to ask questions, our producer Eddie's hiding in the background. He'll be looking for questions you can add, but feel free to join us as we go. The most important thing I want to show you a couple. So what's happened in the last 48 hours since I last talked to you? One, my voice has gotten worse, so I apologize for that. But two, man, we have found out a lot about what really happened at Arlington when Donald Trump decided to go there. What we now know was truly a campaign event. 2 of the families of the 13 Afghanistan our Marines and soldiers that were killed at Abbey Gate 3 years ago. 2 of the families had a wreath laying ceremony. Arlington National Cemetery hosts 3,000 private wreath layings a year. This was not an official one. This was the families asked for it with the Trump campaign. They had their wreath laying. A lot went on. We can talk about that when the rest of us join us. But we are finding a lot more, and it's not good. There really was an altercation to the point where we're now finding out here this was a planned campaign event, that Trump's team did want to do it to drag President Biden and Vice President Harris for what happened in the Afghanistan withdrawal. It's leaking out now. They did put it together, that the Army did turn them down originally, did not let them do it. And the campaign reached out to Speaker Mike Johnson, who then pressured the United States Army to accept Trump campaign's event with the families. They were then told they weren't allowed to have campaign videographers or photographers or use it for partisan activity. If you guys remember, I showed you the other day, the rules at Arlington are very clear. No partisan activities are to occur. It's actually a federal law. And so that's why they were trying to stop the Trump campaign from using their videographers and photographers. There was a tussle. Military police were called. There was shoving. And of course, there was a report filed. And now we know. The next day, the Trump campaign put out a TikTok video, which was a political ad targeting President Biden and Vice President Harris. That's what happened. But it's not going great. You know, you see the AP, they were warned not to take photos. They were told the families can't waive federal law. They're not allowed to. That's fake. Okay. I appreciate what they're going through, but families can't waive federal law just because you've got family there. It's like, I was joking the other day. It's like me saying, I've decided I'm going to waive speed limits. It's not how it works. The law is the law. Just because they have their kids buried there, they can't ignore the rules. And the sanctity of Arlington, which is what we're going to talk about with our guest today. And then how is it going, by the way? Let's see how it's going. Well, Drudge Report. Drudge Report has a strong opinion about this, with Don's gibbering idiot smiling photo, thumbs up at a grave of a soldier, a Marine, and then that photo, and of course this cartoon came out today, which is the photo op. He really should be in front of the graves that he created. So let's add our guest. I've got a great crew. Some you know, some you don't, but I love to have him. Let's come on in, bring everybody in. We're going to have our friend Alex Vindman. Of course, Lieutenant Colonel retired Alex Vindman was working at the National Security Council. He retired out of there for reasons. And now he works with his here at VoteVets. My friend Mike Lavigne. Mike is a retired Sergeant Major of the United States Army, Public Affairs, and worked in the Old Guard. He was an actual Old Guard, a soldier in the 90s. He'll talk about that. Our good friend. Eddie, can you bring in? Oh, here she is. There you go. My good friend, Charlotte Clymer. You may know her very well. Charlotte was also in the Old Guard, wrote a great thread the other day. Charlotte, welcome to the show. I really appreciate what you had to say. And last but not at all least, our good friend, Karen Meredith. Karen, of course, is a Gold Star mom. Her son, Ken Ballard, was lieutenant in the United States Army. We lost him on Memorial Day of 2004. He's buried in Section 60. So, gang, thanks for joining us. As you can see, we got a big crowd joining. I hope your friends are coming. We really want to talk about this stunt blew up in their face, didn't it, Alex?
It was a disaster. I would say that it's still shocking that some folks, attempt to give the administration benefit of the doubt, or that Trump campaign is trying to troop out some veterans to gaslight the public and say that Trump was there to honor folks. If you look at this in the context of Trump calling our troops suckers and losers, he did that in front of John Kelly, Marine General, who is Trump's own chief of staff. His recent denigration of the Medal of Honor, equating it to something that he presents to he presented to a wealthy donor, or just this episode at Arlington where he basically has his staff orchestrate a stunt, in a way. And I hope this is. I'm really quite empathetic because I know some folks that were killed in Iraq that are buried there, and I'm deeply empathetic with the Gold Star families. But in a way, I feel like they've been victimized twice. They lost their loved ones 3 years ago, and then they were basically paraded out for a campaign stunt. I don't think this is. We'll figure out if this was passive. If they reached out, I doubt it. I think it's probably the campaign reaching out to figure out how to do a photo op to demonstrate that Trump is actually in support of the troops. All of this is a bunch of nonsense, and it's deeply disturbing. You can see how the veterans respond. It is visceral. The Medal of Honor is visceral. Calling our fallen soldiers suckers and losers is visceral. Desecrating the hallowed ground of Arlington is visceral for those that have served and their families, because they understand the sacrifice. So I'm glad that this is getting the attention it so deserves. Even stalwart kind of conservative outlets like Drudge, we showed the top line, but every single story on their cover page was about this disaster. And this is one of those things that Trump needs to own, and it should further alienate veterans and veteran families and people that respect veterans, because it is a pretty disgusting act.
Yeah. And Mike, you finished your career as the Sergeant Major of Public Affairs, and you were also an old guard soldier. Part of the big story here is that the public affairs official from Arlington did her best to try and stop them. There was an official photographer there, right? Can you explain to our viewers why that was an issue? The rule about partisan activities at Arlington, why that matters?
Yeah. So first of all, none of the reporting I saw identified her as the public affairs person. I know she was a staffer, and I just wanted to be clear about that, just because we all know what happens when this side of the electorate decides to pick a target. They'll get a name and they'll go to work. Alex, Fred, and I guess we all kind of know that pretty well firsthand. But so simply put, the official from ANC was doing her job. There's a federal law that prohibits the use of imagery collected in any national military cemetery for partisan political purposes. And I mean, to the extent that they should have seen the handwriting on the wall, I think the Army may have bungled this one just from the start, fully knowing that there was some influence from the Speaker's office that actually made this happen in the first place. There should have been probably more of a staff presence to prevent something like this, or clearly explained up front to prevent this from happening. The Army is pretty closed mouth. They did put out a statement today that was, by all measures, pretty extraordinary. You don't normally see those come out. But I would just add, as a former public affairs advisor, I would have been up in arms. I mean, to the extent I could have as a sergeant major, I probably would have looked to put a resignation on somebody's desk after today. Wow. I don't feel that the Army pushed back hard enough. I understand, apolitical and nonpartisan stance, but to the extent that the Army has failed to care for and defend women in the Army, the minute that they identified this staffer by gender, they had an opportunity to stand up and maybe protect this individual in a way that they failed to do back in 2021 when Tucker Carlson went after women in uniform. Yeah, but they didn't. But back to the initial question, Fred. So my first job in the U.S. Army was as a rifleman in Charlie Company, 3rd U.S. Infantry, the Old Guard. And I was a full honors firing party guy in 2nd Platoon of Charlie Guard. And I spent a tremendous amount of time in Arlington National Cemetery. And in a lot of ways, it shaped me for who I became in my journey in the Army. But the reverence of our honored dead, the careful precision that each soldier in the old guard honed over time and practice was to honor our fallen, and it just, I think anyone who has served in that organization, and Charlotte did it a whole hell of a lot more, frankly, perfectly stated than I could probably do right now. But anyone who's been in that position has to just have their guts in a knot. Seeing that photo with his foot on a grave and a shit-eating grin with a big thumbs up, it's just absolutely galling.
Yeah, and Charlotte, turning to you did have a thread which was very powerful, and of course you're a great writer. Substack's amazing. You talk about how serious that job is, how serious the soldiers. Can you give? I mean, I love it because you both offer such a perspective on just how reverent it is there, and of course Karen's son is there. Tell us about that. I mean, you went in great length about how you guys practice, and can you tell people to understand just what it goes into what you did?
Yeah, it's an odd thing. I think Mike kind of hit it perfectly there. You really have to work in the unit to understand the gravity of what you're doing. I look back on that time and I think of all the folks who I worked around, and we were all young folks, like between 18 and 24 or so. Some of us were conservatives, some of us were liberals. We had one guy in my company who very openly identified as an anarchist. We'd drink at night, we'd party, we'd have a good time. But let me tell you something, whatever arguments we had, whatever political beliefs we had, everything else went out the window the moment we went into that cemetery. And I don't think we had to be told either. That's the other thing. Like you'd have soldiers who'd screw up every now and then, didn't do the rest of their jobs maybe as well as they could have. But once you get into Arlington, all that matters are the folks who are buried in that ground and their families. That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing else comes before that.
Yeah.
And, it was a tough job. It was depressing. We worked every day around the clock. Technically, all of us were on call all the time. So, you might be on an off day and you get called in because, your company has to deal with a funeral or, some kind of other ceremony or something to that effect. And so what really struck me about this story was that as hard as that was, the most difficult job by a mile, by far, is being a cemetery official. Because those are the folks who have to, I don't want to put it that way, they have the honor, but also the great burden of ensuring that families have everything they need on one of the worst days of their lives. I mean, you're there in Arlington, you're surrounded by, yes, honor, of course, but you're also surrounded by death. And I cannot begin to imagine how hard it must be for a family coming into Arlington and just knowing that they're never going to see their loved one again, that they're gone forever. The last time they hugged them was the last time they hugged them. And that's it. And the cemetery officials, mostly civilians, but some veterans who, really go to great pains to comfort these families, have the absolute impossible task of trying to mitigate the pain that those families and relatives and loved ones are feeling when they go into Arlington. So, when I saw that a cemetery official was assaulted by a Trump campaign official, I was so enraged, just overcome with anger. Many of my veteran friends and I have been texting each other for the last couple of days, just gobsmacked by all of this. And then when each new update comes up, it just keeps generating rage.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the last time I was this angry at Donald Trump. And that's saying something, because there have been plenty of occasions to be angry at him lately.
Right. That's a great point. And I think it's a perfect place to, Karen, for us to talk to you and all of us, before we start the show. Everybody, we had a little pre-show, and we're very sorry for your loss, Karen. It's, I can't imagine what you were feeling as you saw those pictures come out and you saw them standing amongst the graves. What's your thoughts?
Well, with Trump, it started with his comments about John McCain. So that was the first shot across the bow. And he never got better. Nothing he ever said about the military was any better than that. It got worse every single time. So when I heard about this on Monday afternoon, I was horrified. I was angry. I don't know. It just hurt my heart. And that's what he does every time. When he called my son a sucker and a loser, I thought my son will always be a better man than he ever will. So it's been horrible the last 2 days because it's getting worse. Every time another story comes out, there's another detail, and it's just getting worse. When I found out this morning that Mike Johnson arranged this, I thought, of course it's a political thing. They lied from the beginning. They couldn't misunderstand. But let me tell you about Ken for a second. Ken was my only child, First Lieutenant Ken Ballard. He was my only child. He was 26 years old, served in the 1st Armored Division, and had been in Iraq for 384 days, I think, and had been extended. By that time, nobody had been killed in their unit or in their, not division. But Ken was a 4th generation Army officer. So my family bleeds Army green. And
this is an all Army show, Karen.
Okay.
Yes, that was on purpose. So all y'all, I don't want to hear it.
So Ken loved being in. He joined right out of high school as an enlisted man, went into Bosnia as an 18-year-old. I didn't worry about him 1 second. I don't know if it was because I was a single mom and he was off on his own and on his own adventure, but I didn't worry about it until I saw some of the pictures that he sent home. Then he got an Army Green to Gold scholarship and went to college for 4 years. Couldn't wait to get back to his tanks and his unit. And he did it in 4 years. And he surprised me one Mother's Day with being on the honor roll. That was a shock. He was not a good student in high school. So, but Ken loved his guys and his guys loved him. And I'm sure all of you remember who your first lieutenant was. Ken was the kind of guy that would wear his Metallica shirt under his BDUs. And I have a picture of him as the tank commander wearing a Hawaiian shirt over full body armor. So that's the kind of guy Ken was.
Really a tanker. I mean, everybody knows the tankers are like that.
Yes.
Tankers are always second to aviators. They're flamboyant.
Yeah, a little bit briefly. The Army lied to me how he was killed. I didn't find out the truth for 15 months. They told me he was killed by insurgents. And 15 months later, they told me that he was killed by the accidental discharge of the M249 weapon on his tank. He was in the command seat. And what came out was when they gave them orders, they were under heavy fire. When they gave them orders to get back to base, Ken said, hang left, turn right, and get us home. And as he said that, the weapon brushed up against a tree branch and killed him immediately. So the Army has not been my friend with the casualty process. But back to the subject of the day. I may be a little bit premature in this conversation, but I want Trump banned. I do not want him ever to step foot in Arlington again, ever.
There you go.
And if he's buried there,
if
he's buried there, I may need some help in fixing that.
Late night run. Well, that's it, right? I mean,
That's right.
That's a great, I mean, there's been he literally broke federal law, you guys. This isn't like a norm. I think some of the media, I got frustrated because they sort of framed it like, oh yeah, he broke it. This isn't a norm. They literally broke federal law, right? I mean,
So,
Alex?
Fred, I think, to me, it seems clear that he's kind of desperate.
Right.
He knows his vulnerabilities. He knows one of those. Look, my impeachment, the report that led to Donald Trump's first impeachment was because he knew he was vulnerable to Biden running against him in 2020, and he's looking to damage Biden back then. What is this? This is him knowing that he's vulnerable on the way he's interacted with veterans and soldiers, calling us suckers and losers, calling the war dead suckers and losers. He knows, his campaign knows that this is something that's actually going to peel support away, and he's already on the losing side of the equation, and he's desperate. So he tries to do this political stunt at Arlington, hallowed ground, something that he doesn't understand, the honor and respect that's paid to those folks there, and he orchestrates this stunt, and it blows up in his face.
Right.
And it's a disaster. If you stack that on top of the suckers and losers, you stack that on top of him being denounced by veterans of foreign wars for denigrating the Medal of Honor. This is just another kind of, yes, it's a slap in the face, but it's something that should be reverberating through veteran families. And honestly, it's going to play towards his weakness. I hope people wake up. This is not a man that understands service. He doesn't understand the Army loyalties. All of us know what those are: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. None of those. He doesn't represent any single one of those. Right. And the American public is recognizing that. I think veterans that served don't see that reflected in his character and his behavior. And the best thing that we can do, and this is what I hope to do, is to make sure we pierce this image of him as somehow pro-military, to peel that back and show him for who he is, so we don't have to, see absolute chaos in the way he treats the troops and the way he puts our country at risk in the chaos he sows.
Yep. I mean, and Charlotte, you've been out there having these conversations, and you're hearing from a lot of your fellow veterans, right? I mean, what's the vibe you're hearing? Is this one different, Charlotte?
This one's different. Yeah, this one's a lot different. I think in the past there has been perhaps a lot of grace, maybe undeservedly extended to Donald Trump in the past for whatever. I mean, we think back to the 2016 campaign. It was his incredibly weird attack on the family of Captain Khan, and that was a year after his attacks on the late Senator John McCain. Right. And then, I forget the exact incident, but then 4 or 5 years later, there was that phone call he had with the mother of a soldier who had died in action in overseas, which was odd in itself. Every single one of these, to some extent, have been pretty awful on the face, but they've been able to explain it away in some sort. This is beyond the pale, though. This is way beyond the pale. Arlington is, well, quite literally, it's like going to someone's funeral and causing a scene.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If someone went to the funeral of your loved one and caused a scene, got in a fight, was disrespectful toward the funeral staff, you'd be pretty angry.
Yeah.
And so, I've been talking to a couple of veterans here and there, some of them conservatives, at least one of them who does support Donald Trump, who are aghast at all this. Who are just so taken aback because, for us, again, this is not about party. I am a proud Democrat, but, this is not about who you voted for or, what political party you support or your beliefs. This is about a very basic bedrock principle of respect for those who gave all for our country. That's all there is to it. And nothing else matters. And if you can at least hit that baseline of respect, you are deeply unqualified to, be the local dog catcher, let alone the president of the United States. And I do agree with Miss Meredith. He should be banned from Arlington National Cemetery. I have no idea what the adjudicatory process for that would be. I don't pretend to know. That is out of my lane. but he should be banned, because anyone who goes into Arlington National Cemetery and causes a scene like that and allows for a cemetery official to be assaulted has no business being there ever again. It is a privilege. It is a privilege, not a right, to be able to go into Arlington National Cemetery and honor those who have given all for our country.
I think you nail it. And they've just made it worse since. I mean, the thing is, the incident was bad, you guys, right? But they've been doubling down and tripling down. And these scumbags, Chris Lasavita, who's his co-chair, who's also the guy who did the damn Swift boat stuff, is his co-chair. I've heard rumors. I can't confirm. It was Lasavita that did it, that got in the fight. Just saying. I'm sure reporters are looking into that. Can't wait to see the police report. Fort Myer, Henderson Hall, military police. Call them. Anyway, so, you know, he's made it worse, has he, Mike? Wasn't he tweeting some crap today, right? I think I brought it up, Mike.
Yeah, you say double and triple, and I think they're down. They're at quadruple down at this point. So, I mean, this tweet is from not too long ago.
Today, a couple hours ago.
Like why? Why?
Yeah.
And
can't see it. He's saying Lasavita posted, and by the way, he's blocked me finally. He reposted an image.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. F that guy. You know, he blocked this. He posted this today to trigger the hacks at Secretary of the Army, literally calling the woman he assaulted, or the person he assaulted, probably a hack, and taunting them. This is a veteran. This son of a gun, his profile picture is him from Desert Storm in uniform 30 years
Purple Heart veteran, even.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And then, you know, the part that compounds it is now the flood of the maggots into the Twitter sphere and into Facebook land, flooding the zone with photos of President Obama, President Biden, you know, in Arlington Cemetery, and saying, well, I guess it's not illegal here. And it's like, it's just a perfect example of our steadily dumber electorate, right? At least on that side of the aisle. It's like official photos of presidents of the United States doing their duty, either on a Memorial Day or a Veterans Day or for whatever purpose, with officially released imagery. That's okay. You don't see Joe Biden standing on a grave with his thumbs up and a big grin on his face. Right. You don't see President Obama having fun in Section 60, because that's not a place where you have fun. That's a place of quiet reverence. It's been that way since I marched into Arlington Cemetery in the mid-90s, when Section 60, quite frankly, was very small. Yeah. And now it's 16 acres of our honored dead. I mean,
and I want to pull that thread, Mike, because I've seen that today. That's the new talking point for the MAGA side, is that, well, here's an ad that Biden did. Okay, the difference is, if you look at this rule I just showed, partisan activities are inappropriate. The photos being, look, it's okay, believe it or not. The kicker, you guys, is if Trump had used photos from Arlington when he was president of the United States, which, by the way, he didn't do very often, but if he'd used pictures of him in a wreath laying or speaking or amongst the graves in an ad, that's actually legal, by the way, by the letter of the law. The point was, they went to Arlington to conduct original partisan activity and film that for a video. So this little MAGA trick, and everybody who's watching this, get them. It's perfectly legal to use photos you got there. You can't conduct, look at the rule, partisan activities on the grounds of the president visiting our soldiers, President Biden visiting the ones, you know, wandering the graves, Obama, all those, that's perfectly fine. Trump visiting, and that's, by the way, don't forget, that's where he called us. He said to General Kelly, he doesn't know why we did this, but that's legal. The fact is, they went to Arlington with the purpose of creating a partisan campaign ad. That's the difference. Understand it. It's not that you can't use pictures. It's that you cannot conduct partisan political activity. Did you guys remember?
Fred,
it sounds like you've actually read the reg and you've looked into it. Like, right. The sad part here is that most of the people doing war on social media could give less than a damn about what's written.
No.
What they're worried about is what their leader is telling them.
Right.
What their collective cult friends are telling them, and what they're hearing and seeing in their silo. And that's why I think it's important, you know, just to take a step back from all of this, maybe go a little bit higher up and say that it's important for us to break outside of our own individual silos. It is important for us to engage with people of different thoughts and different belief systems, because if they're not hearing it from us, they might never hear it at all because of these self-imposed silos that we've put ourselves in.
Charlotte, you're going to say something. You're going to point about that whole situation.
Yeah, no, I just want to make this point real quick too. These wreath layings happen all the time, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. The only time we see them, the public sees them, because they're usually on cable news or in a newspaper, is when the president or the vice president, maybe the Secretary of Defense, maybe a visiting foreign head of state will do a wreath laying at the tomb of the unknown guard.
Yep.
But these happen almost every day. It could be a nonprofit who does it. It might be some kind of official group of tourists who do it. But if you go to Arlington National Cemetery, to the Tomb of the Unknown Guards, on any given day, there's going to be a wreath laying of some sort. And sometimes there will be several wreath layings.
Yep.
So it doesn't, I personally don't care that Donald Trump was there specifically to do a wreath laying. That in itself does not bother me as much. Like that's whatever. Would I prefer he not be in the cemetery at all? Yes, of course. Before the incident itself, I would have preferred he not be there, but whatever. He did a wreath laying. That's not it. It really isn't. The part that gets to us is the complete disrespect shown toward the cemetery official who they assaulted, and also the fact that they use the images, as you said, Fred, for a very partisan purpose, campaign purpose, put on their TikTok of all things, for a political ad on TikTok. I mean, that's the issue here. So, when I see some folks saying, well, fine, it's fine. He's a former president. He can visit Arlington. That's not the issue.
Not the issue.
Not the issue for us.
No.
It is the way he used it in a very personal, political, partisan purpose. It is like, excuse my language, it's pissing on the graves of these, 400,000 folks who are buried at Arlington. That's what it comes down to for us.
Yeah. And Karen, you didn't get a vote. You didn't get a chance to say whether or not, that should happen. And we know that Major Novice from the Marine Corps, he's a Marine Corps Raider, was in several of the photos. We've also heard that one of the other graves was a Special Forces officer who unfortunately took his own life. His grave is included in that. His family actually are Donald Trump supporters, my understanding. They're upset. I mean, how do you feel as a family member knowing that they went there purposely to promote Donald Trump's presidency?
Well, that it was premeditated, and then they tried to say, "Oh no, we just were going there to be with the families." I think it probably started around the time of the Republican convention, because some of those families appeared at that convention. So that may be where the connection came from, and that's only been 2 or 3 weeks now. So, but I wanted to say something about Gold Star families. I know if you've been to Section 60, and I think all of you have, it's a different place.
It is.
Arlington may be sorry that they put us all in the same place, because we have a Christmas tree near Ken that we decorate every year. And I know they think that doesn't fit the decorum, but that's what Section 60 is. They're all so young. And you see little kids running around, and you see widows and, 19-year-old widows, or the whole family. When we were there for Memorial Day this year for Ken's 20th year, there were 35 of us there to honor Ken, people he had served with. One young man flew in from Missouri who had known Ken for 6 weeks in Iraq, but it was that important for him to come. But the things that I've been seeing now, I haven't been targeted specifically for this incident yet, although I'm waiting. But what I'm hearing is, well, why wasn't Biden there for the anniversary? Why wasn't Kamala Harris there for the anniversary? Well, why wasn't Trump there the last 2 years?
Right.
So that argument goes away. But
and they weren't invited.
So
the family didn't invite them.
Right.
This was a private ceremony.
Oh no, they said they invited Biden, but he's on the beach. Why couldn't he honor our soldiers? Well, why didn't President Bush, although he wouldn't have been welcome, why didn't President Bush come and lay a wreath for my son that day and lay flowers? That's not what they do, and that's not their job. and it wouldn't have been a good thing for me or my family. And that's all they do. They'd spend their whole days at Arlington. But so all the Gold Star families certainly do not. There are many that support the MAGA GOP. There are many that are, but my texts have been blowing up with the families who are in Section 60. And those are only those families. I've been hearing from all the other ones too. So just no, it's not just me. I am not representing all Gold Star families. I am representing, speaking from VoteVets has given me this platform, but there are many, many, many Section 60 families that are just horrified.
Yeah. I mean, did you guys see something that like there was a phone placed on the Marines headstone that I saw somebody say something like that? It looks like there's something sitting on one of them placed their phone on his grave. It's just shocking.
No.
Yeah.
That happened?
Supposedly one of the pictures. Let me see.
A telephone?
Fred.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Is that right?
my
You see that
God.
on the left there?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Oh
no,
no, I don't think that's a
Hope
phone.
not.
I'm
Please,
always
please,
surprised
please
when
tell
I
me
go
it's not.
visit Ken. There's coins, there's stones, so I
Thank
hope it's not a phone.
I hope not either. It's
I
just
hope that- yeah,
Fred,
it's
what bothers
it's
me about
typical
this
to
picture,
place
guys.
it.
What bothers me about this picture is look in the behind Trump. Do you see the man in red back there? They didn't agree to be in a campaign commercial. It's like I could show you again. See there's people in red. They're not there. They're probably visiting their own kid. And what you said so key, Karen. I said to a reporter today, you guys, there's probably not a single veteran who served since 9/11 downrange, or even without going downrange, that isn't 1 to 2 degrees of separation from someone in Section 60. Someone. Right? I mean, maybe it's not one of your troops or one of your best friends, but 2 degrees, maybe one of your friends' kids, one of your friends' soldiers, one of your guys who committed suicide, because we have a lot of those, right? And they're in Section 60 as well. I personally, I didn't lose any soldiers in Iraq, but I lost them in Desert Storm, and they're in Veterans Cemetery. But interesting thing about Section 60, there's actually a grave, a 5-man grave for mixed remains of our Air Force members and 3 Iraqis who were training together in Iraq in an aircraft that crashed and burned. And because the remains became what they call mixed remains, they couldn't identify them. They buried them in a group grave in Section 60. I actually escorted the Iraqi general staff when they visited in 2010 to Section 60 to visit their fallen officers in our cemetery. That's who's there. It's not just us. It's our allies who fought by our side. And that's how important Section 60 is. Like you said, these are young families. These are parents. Look, a lot of Arlington, if you visit it, Civil War, and it started off with the Civil War, you guys. There's 400,000 of us buried in there. A lot of them, they're gone, But Section 60 is raw. It's fresh. It's where we are. And Karen's a good example. Her son was lost in the very first year of the war, but you're still here. You're still visiting. His friends are still putting coins on his grave, putting military challenge coins, right? I bet you go every time you find a unit challenge coin. When you walk Section 60, it's real.
And the fact that he's buried at Arlington, I often get pictures, maybe from people I don't know, that they'll send me on Facebook. Oh, I visited Ken today. And that since I'm in California, it kind of makes my mama heart happy that he's not by himself. So that's good. But Section 60 is not somber. It's not
different, right?
But the dozens and dozens of times that I've been there as a visitor, it's quiet. It doesn't matter how many people there are, especially on Memorial Day. There's always a lot of people and there's energy there, but people do not. That was the thing that really stabbed me in the heart, was that there could be an altercation, that anybody could think that you could use physical force to move somebody. That is inconceivable to me.
Right. In Section 60 and then that's my point with that picture. So this altercation, this shouting match and shoving occurred within earshot of probably a fallen service member's family visiting his grave. That's who these people are. That's who I'm not allowed to cuss this guy. That's who this SOB. That's who he's mocking. When Chris LaCivita posts a tweet mocking the Army staff, he's mocking the family that was there visiting their grave. That's who Chris LaCivita is. That's who Trump is.
But I got to ask this question, Fred. Like, what's it going to take, man? Like,
right?
Like at this point, like, I mean, going back to the summer of 2015 when he was on stage and he attacked John McCain. I remember, I talked about this last time I was on. I remember thinking, well, that was fun while it lasted, his 2 weeks of candidacy. And then it was the Access Hollywood tape. I mean, and all of the things in between in the campaign, still got elected. What is it going to take for the American people to excise this guy from our collective consciousness, from our eyes and our sight? Like, what is it going to take for the Republican Party to send this guy on his way down the road in a way that will just return some sort of normalcy to the Republican side? Like, I don't want MAGA, I want MANA, like make America normal again, right? What's it going to take to get him out and just return back to where we were? What more can he really do that hasn't been done to us already?
Mike, I think for some people, it's going to be that deranged photo of him standing in front of those graves with an absurd grin, completely. I mean, like, who hasn't been to a cemetery? Everybody's been to a cemetery. They understand, unless you're a child, people have an appropriate behavior. They're somber. They're paying respects. That deranged grin, the thumb up, the general disrespect and using our recently departed fallen soldiers. For some people, that's going to be enough. What Trump was trying to do is he was trying to show up there to bolster his bona fides, to demonstrate that he's pro-troops. He's because of his own missteps, suckers and losers, Medal of Honor. He was trying to demonstrate that he's for the troops. That picture right there, that circulation of that picture for some people is going to be enough, I think.
Yeah.
Hope you're right.
The thumbs up and grinning.
This is your lips to God's ear, Alex.
That's the governor of Utah, by the way, on the far right, guys. And again, you see the family on the far right there?
Just watching the spectacle. I'm sure they were not involved or gave any consent or release to their name, image, or likeness. I mean, it's just, frankly, if I was one of those people in the background, I'd find myself a hungry lawyer and see what happens.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
So, Alex, I'm just curious. What do you think happens next? I mean, do you think the MPs can do something? I mean, what's your thinking as far as official Army goes? You were an Army staffer like me.
Yeah. So I think what I would like to see, and it's probably not going to happen, the military, it tries to stay out of politics, and there's a merit to that. They certainly made some tough. I don't know if it was tough, but they traded the good of the one for the many in their views, and avoiding Trump's attention, probably in my case, in Mike's case. But this is hallowed ground. So I wonder if this is going to reverberate from the standpoint of charges for a potential assault. That issue may have gone away. The victim in this case doesn't want to press charges, but there is a violation of law, and it looks like it's going to be investigated by the Senate Armed Services Committee and potentially referred to DOJ. And this will be another legal headache. I think that's a good thing to follow through on, because we have what we have today with Trump is the product of a lack of accountability for decades. So accountability is going to come soon enough. But before any of that happens, because these are really long, the wheels of justice grind slowly. Before that happens, we'll have an election, and that's where things are going to be decided in just over 2 months. So my hope is that these guys are unbelievable. They show their true colors pretty regularly. For some people, that doesn't mean anything. For others, it does. I think this deputy campaign manager attacking the Army is not helpful. I think at this point they're grasping at straws to try to figure out how to hang on when the momentum is kind of decidedly shifting, because nobody wants to go back to chaos. We're not going back. But again, I guess it's up to the American public to stay engaged, to pay attention to what's going on, and make their voice heard on November 5th.
Charlotte, you were at the DNC with me. You saw the energy. I love your perspective. I know my perspective. There was a lot of veteran stuff there, wasn't there?
Oh yeah. Heavy on veteran stuff, which I love seeing.
Yeah. I mean, I attended the Veteran Military Council. You know, on the fourth night, they had all the veterans come out on stage, elected officials. It's clear that the Democratic Party is trying to show clearly that they are pro-military, they are pro-veteran. I had a guy, I heard a speech. He says, actually, Terrence Sims was on my show, and he's the co-chair of the Veteran and Military Family Council. He said, you know, where's the money? Show us where they spend their money. And clearly the Democrats have been doing that for the last 3 years, especially with the PACT Act and other places, right? But that was interesting, wasn't it? I thought I found that very interesting that the DNC very much made veterans a key pillar of the DNC, didn't they?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. On the last night I was there, I was up in a box that a friend invited me into. There were some younger Gen Z influencers in there. Some of them who I think would be a little more on the left than I am. I remember sitting next to one of them as we're watching the proceedings, and they turned to me and they said something like, "This is the most Republican Democratic National Convention I've ever seen." And then I was waiting for them to say something negative, and then they said, "And I like it."
Yeah.
You know, because it feels as though it's the exact opposite. It felt like the exact opposite of pandering. It felt like the Democratic National Committee was making it clear that we are not going to let patriotism be taken away from us. We are not going to let military service be taken away from us. National security, the importance of faith, the importance of service in uniform, regardless of how that looks, the importance of law and order. All of these things that have been so vulnerable for the Democratic Party in various ways over the last several decades. I think that the DNC just finally had it. And they were like, okay, fine, we're going to go all in, and we're going to show you just how patriotic we are, just how much pro-military we are, and make it clear that between these two major parties, there is one that stands for freedom and patriotism, and making sure everyone in this country is protected, and that everyone in uniform and their families are not left behind. And that's not them. That's us. The Democratic Party is who does that. You know, and the thing is, again, this is one of those incidents where I don't want to make it partisan. I really don't. When Arlington is that discussion, I don't want to bring politics into it if I can help it.
Yeah.
But I think it's notable over the last 48 hours, the lack of accountability we've seen from Republican elected officials in terms of being asked to condemn this incident. Now, look, I haven't seen all the reporting out there yet.
Sure.
I could have missed something, but where are the political reporters who are asking Republican elected officials, particularly members of Congress, particularly the chair of the RNC, to condemn this?
Yeah.
To me, it's missing.
Yeah.
If a Democrat had done this, if Vice President Harris, I mean, I can't even conceive of a world in which that would happen, but if Vice President Harris had done this, or Governor Walz, or really anyone in the Democratic Party had pulled this nonsense, I guarantee you, within hours, not a day, within hours, there'd be a long list of Democratic officials who would have been asked by political reporters, do you condemn this action? And they would have put out a statement saying, yes, that was absolutely wrong. Arlington is a sacred and hallowed place. And this person's actions are completely contrary to the purpose of what Arlington is supposed to represent. And yet, when you look at the media landscape over the last 2 days and the just sheer lack of accountability from the Republican Party over Trump's behavior at Arlington National Cemetery, it once again points to a double standard in how much of political media cover Republicans versus Democrats. And we cannot forget that.
Hey, Charlotte, I will throw in, and not to necessarily body block for any political journalists, but it's been one hell of a news cycle. The right way to say this, today/this week, because just today alone feels like it's been a week.
Yes.
This has been one hell of a week so far. And I honestly feel like collectively we're running the danger of really being desensitized by outrage after unbelievable act after one on top of another, to the point where they just become like progressive and sequential. They're just layered on top of each other, and you don't even have enough time to react to the first one, and you're on to the third one already. And that's really kind of emblematic of Donald Trump in a leadership position, right? You're going from thing to thing to thing. A lot of times, we were finding out about him by tweet, and just this portion of election cycle is a perfect example of that. We're still trying to figure out, what's going on with Governor Walz and all the attacks that the right has had on him just in the last week, and then bam, we're right into this, and then a number of other stories that hit today, but between Senate races in Montana and the governor of Maryland. So it's just like one thing after another after another.
Yeah.
I worry about the Overton window. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, the good news about this story is now it's 4 days old. It didn't go away in 24 hours. So I think the public is outraged, and I think that's a good sign. And as long as we keep talking about it and there's more stories to be told, I talked with the Atlantic magazine this morning. So even Inside Edition, I didn't know they were hard-hitting news, but I'll be on that tonight. So there is interest that we may not have seen before, and the fact that this story is still as hot as it is 4 days later, this was a big mess up.
And here's where I think the difference is too, Mike. And this is what I discovered today. All of our old friends in the Pentagon press corps, and I won't mention names: Tara, Ellen, Dan, Ben. What's interesting about this story is those are the people start calling me today. And this is why I think Trump's in big trouble. Let's be honest, you guys. The political press moves on. Next hot story. And with Trump, it is a constant fire hose of scandal. That's right. It's always, he's going to say something stupid tomorrow. I guarantee it. JD Vance going to do something creepy. And we're going to move on, right? Kamala's going to, I can't believe she lied about, she never put McDonald's on her resume.
Oh, no.
Okay. You can't make this stuff up. But you know what? The Pentagon press corps is on this now. And they rolled in today. My phone blew up today. There was one military reporter who called me who hasn't been on the military beat with her large news conglomerate. I won't say what it is. That her editors put her back on it. And she called me. She said, look, there's one guy I know, veteran stuff, Army stuff, and Democrats. Like, that's me. And so this is where they effed up. Political press, Charlotte, you saw them beating us up for being at the DNC. Now they effed up. They're with the Pentagon press corps. And what does the Pentagon press corps do? They dig into stories. They know the PAOs. They know the commanders. They walk in. They're in the Pentagon. They can walk into the Military District of Washington's office, and say, hey, General, what do you think of this? They can walk into the Fort Myer Henderson Hall MP station because they've got an ID. Yeah. And so the difference, I think, with this story, I think is really interesting, Mike, and you get as a PAO and Charlotte, is this is now no longer just a political story. It's also a media, a Pentagon story. And a lot
of these reporters are veterans, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. Ben Kessling's a veteran. Alex at the Washington Post. Dan Lamont's been in combat more than I have. I mean, that's the kicker with a lot of these guys. I joke all the time. I was a PAO downrange two tours. Some of these military reporters have seen more combat than I did. And I did 4 combat tours and got shot at every freaking time, but these guys have been in some stuff, and that's who's now digging into this. So this is a different animal because they're not gonna just get shaked off the bone of the political press work. When I was talking to that one reporter who's back in the military beat, her editors were standing around her listening to the conversation.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is different, you guys. From that, as an old PO, a PR guy and a media guy, this one's different. It feels different. And it should be. Nothing is more sacred ground in America for those of us, for every American, but especially those of us who've served, than Arlington National Cemetery. And the idea that Trump thinks so little of us, that he would use our most sacred ground as a campaign stunt, says everything about his ethics, everything about his moral compass, and everything about the people he surrounds himself. And
as veterans, we're tools, and as active duty service members, we were backdrops for him when he was the president. Let's just be honest.
And we need no more proof that this is his co-campaign manager. Chris LaCivita is the deputy campaign manager of his entire campaign, a combat veteran himself with a Purple Heart. And this is what he thinks of us and those who serve their country.
And someday we're going to get an op-ed. We're going to get an op-ed from Mr. LaCivita. Excuse me, I garbled his last name. But, years from now, after Trump loses, we're going to get an op-ed from him saying that he regrets this incident. It's going to happen. It'll be 4 or 5 years from now. He'll put in an op-ed or an interview or something saying, I look back on that with a lot of regret. And I'm not going to accept his apology. That's for damn sure. Because he knows better in this moment what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, guys, we talked for almost an hour. I'm going to do the round the bend last comments. Alex, you're up top of my screen. Last thoughts. Or not. You're muted.
So I guess I still feel this pretty viscerally. I got to say that if those Gold Star families that were with Trump, that I think, frankly, were victimized again. I don't know if they were fully aware of, how they were going to be dragged through the public eye. I do hope they received a little bit of comfort from the fact that their loved ones are not forgotten. No hard feelings against them, but all of the enmity, all of the anger, focused on Trump, focused on his henchmen, and the way they disrespected our troops, disrespected our Arlington National Cemetery, and you know this, Fred and Mike. We're going to work hard to make sure this guy never steps foot in the White House again. He shouldn't have been there. He wasn't qualified. He's demonstrated it repeatedly, and we're going to work hard to make sure he doesn't go back.
Yep, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to echo what President Obama said at the DNC. To paraphrase him, don't boo, vote. So your likes, your retweets, your comments on social media, they are just ones and zeros that go off into the space there. What really matters is showing up day one of early voting or absolutely on election day with your family and your friends, and cast your vote, and just make sure that guy just never again darkens a doorstep in the people's house. I want everyone that's angry about this to just stay angry. Yes. If you feel like, I'm feeling a little bit better about this, just rewatch some coverage or something. Just stay focused and stay angry. I don't think we're going to have to probably try too hard to do that, because again, past has shown that he's probably going to give us fuel to burn from now until election day. So just stay angry and vote.
Yep. Charlotte?
Yeah, ditto to what all that Mr. Vindman and Mr. Lavigne said. But, what I want to see happen on Monday is I want every veteran member of Congress to do a press conference right on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol, and I want them to announce an introduction to formally censure Donald Trump over the conduct of his campaign. Does it have any chance of passing the House? Probably not, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is to remind the American public of how egregious these actions were, how dishonorable they were, how completely insulting they were to veterans and those who have passed and are buried in Arlington, and their families, of course. I really do think that all of us need to see this keep going. We need to really keep reminding the American public that this is not just some drop in the bucket incident that we can let folks forget about. I want to see Jason Crow, Seth Moulton, Mickey Sherrill, like all of these members of Congress who have served with honor, who I deeply admire. I want them to do a press conference on Monday and introduce a resolution to formally censure Donald Trump.
Yep, I agree. I'd like to see investigation. I would like to see hearings. I think they should review the rules that allow this to happen. I think there should be an ethics investigation with Speaker Johnson's involvement in breaking federal law. I mean, we now know that was the funniest thing. That report came from the Daily Caller. They thought it was amazing. Like, they tried to stop Trump, but Speaker Johnson helped him. Yeah, they helped him. Speaker Johnson helped them commit a federal crime. So I would like to see investigations. Last word, Karen, goes to you. Thank you, by the way. You hear this all the time, I know, but having lost soldiers, I know you carry a burden for all of us, and we just appreciate that. But Karen, what do you think?
Oh, well, I'll echo what everybody else said, especially Mike. I will be registering voters in a couple days. We're sort of in a red part of California, believe it or not. So it's interesting the responses we get, but it's so important. And if you can put a mail-in ballot, mail it the day you get it. We don't have to decide who we're voting for. We know who we're voting for. I got my Chucks and my pearls on today, so I'm ready to go. But I just want to remind everyone to get out there and vote. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your families if you're still talking to them. But this election is so important, and we just cannot allow him anywhere near the White House. Thank you for letting me talk about my boy. I do like to talk about him.
I get it. Believe me, they're still with us, and their service can't be forgotten. And we really just appreciate you so much. So my last word, I guess, is this isn't over. I believe we'll see more. Like I said, police reports, the federal police reports are foilable. Who requested the wreath laying? Was it really the families, or was it a representative of the Trump campaign? I want to know that. I'd like to see the paperwork on the request of the Speaker of the House to intervene. That's foilable too. There's a whole lot of things that an investigation would find. And I think we who served, and the 400,000 buried in Arlington, and the 1 million who served today in the military, and then 16 million veterans deserve answers. And the 30 million estimated military family members or military and veteran associated family members in America deserve answers for why the most sacred ground of the United States military was cheapened and used as a cheap political stunt by the most reprehensible, immoral kid to ever serve in office. So I'm going to keep pushing for that. Push your representatives. But like they said, the best way to defeat Donald Trump is defeat Donald Trump. Okay. We've got to go. You got to get your neighbors out. You got to stay angry and stay fired up. And when they say, oh, the tolerant left, not F that. We're not the tolerant left. We're the pissed off left. And we're going to get to work. We're going to put our heads down. We're not going to threaten civil war. We're going to get our heads down and vote your ass out. That's just my opinion. In the meantime, VoteVets, thank you for your support for our organization. If you want to learn more about what VoteVets does, we do a lot. We have candidates all the way down to local level. We are helping those. We're giving money. We're giving support. We are in the fight for the democracy. Go to votevets.org. I'd love you to go there. I'd love you to give a donations because they're paying for all this. And we appreciate that. I'm just saying, if you want to support it, throw some money in there because we'll do more of this because they are giving money to real candidates. There's a guy named Eugene Vindman, weird dude, kind of weird looking. It looks like somebody on the screen here. Eugene's running for office. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot of candidates out there you can support. Start local, get out in the fight, get with your. I guarantee you, there's a race in your district, in your hometown, that desperately needs your help. Desperately needs you to knock doors. Desperately needs you to stand on the side of the road and wave a sign. Start there. And then we'll take our democracy back. We'll put Donald Trump in our memory forever. So with that, we're right at an hour, a little over. Thank you for joining us. 36,000 of you. 36,000 of you are here with us. That says so much about who you are and who we are as a nation, that you took this issue seriously, that we take so seriously. And we just really appreciate you being here with us today. And I look forward to being in the fight beside all of you. Guests, thank you. We'll do this again soon. With that,
thank you.
Stay in the fight, guys. Thank you.